and we can really dive into the material. So again, this is making the case for OER. You'll notice we have a bit of a gardening theme to our slides today. We'll dive into this further as we kind of weave in the metaphor. But essentially, we are looking at ways that you can nurture OER, both within your institution and beyond. Um, but before we talk about all of that, I would like to first introduce you to myself and to the Rebus Foundation. Um, so I'm Spencer, the Program Operations Manager at the Rebus Foundation. Rebus is a registered charity with the mission of forging new avenues for learning in open publishing. We work across borders to deliver professional development programs and resources for low to no costs, such as our signature Open Publishing Project Certificate, our new Supplemental Materials Development Certificate, and this free webinar series. As I mentioned, I'm Spencer. I'm the Program Operations Manager at Rebus. I ensure the smooth proceedings of Rebus's initiatives. My proudest achievement in this role thus far has been synthesizing research on best practices for creating openly licensed authentic assessments, interactive self-checks, in-class activities, and learning resources to develop content for our 6-week Supplemental Development Materials Certificate. Prior to joining Rebus, I worked at eCampus Ontario's Open Library, providing reference services to Ontario educators seeking open educational resources and delivering presentations about emerging trends in open education like this one. I'll turn it over now to Amber Hoy, our Director of Programs, to introduce herself and our guest facilitator.
Hi, everyone. It's so good to be here with you today. As Spencer mentioned, my name is Amber Hoy, and I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the Director of Programs at the Rebus Foundation. My role has two key areas. First, the nurture and tending of our existing programs, services, and partner relationships, and also focusing on developing new programs and services in response to the needs of our open education community. Prior to joining the Rebus team, I worked at Boise State University as the director of the World Languages Resource Center, where I co-directed several large-scale OER projects, including the Pathways Project and a 4-semester French curriculum titled Français Inclusif. And I'm delighted to welcome Bryan McGeary and give you a little bit of information about him before we jump into today's session. So Dr. Bryan McGeary is the Sally W. Kalin Librarian for Learning Innovations and the Learning Design and Open Education Engagement Librarian at Penn State University. In this capacity, he helps advance the university's initiatives that support the creation and use of open and affordable course content and associated teaching practices. He has led programs to support faculty creation and adoption of open educational resources, student co-creation of OER, and the creation and adaptation of OER to support social justice aims. He was also the principal investigator for an IMLS-funded project that piloted a library-led service model for supporting open-source homework systems as supplemental resources for teaching with OER across the Big Ten Academic Alliance. In 2022, he received the Open Education Global Open Pedagogy Award along with his colleague Christina Ryman Murphy for the Open Pedagogy Project Roadmap, a resource they designed to assist instructors in planning, finding, supporting, and sharing, as well as sustaining open pedagogy projects. Bryan is a 2020 slash 2021 Open Education Leadership Fellow for Spark, and he's also an instructor in the Open Education Network Certificate for Open Education Librarianship, as well as a facilitator and alumni of the Rebus Open Publishing Project Certificate program. Welcome, Bryan. We're so excited to have you here with us today.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Mm-hmm. And before we get started with today's content, I think it's important for me to acknowledge that I live, work, and play on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Coquitlam people, or Coquitlam First Nation. And I'm so grateful for the Coquitlam people who continue to live on these lands and care for them, along with the waters and all that is above and below. And if you're not familiar with the Indigenous lands where you reside, there's a wonderful website we can drop in chat. It's called nativeland.ca. And we encourage you to take a moment to find out where you are located.
I consider myself fortunate to live in the vibrant city of Toronto, situated on the unceded territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabeg, the Chippewa, the Wendat, and the Haudenosaunee. As a settler on this land, I am grateful to these communities, and I stand in solidarity with them as we strive towards reconciliation and decolonization. This webinar promises to expand the scope of what we understand as the benefits of OER beyond savings of textbook costs for students. Let's begin by identifying a few stakeholder groups who stand to benefit. These stakeholder groups being, for one, students who enjoy learning from resources tailored to their local contexts, unique needs, and learning styles, as well as contributing their creations to the OER ecosystem through open pedagogy. Educators who have the opportunity to reconnect with the joy of teaching, infusing their lessons with new creative energy, gathering inspiration from openly licensed materials of varied disciplines and from around the world. Librarians who have the chance to enhance their visibility through open initiatives, flourishing in leadership roles thanks to their licensing expertise. And the benefits of OER that these stakeholder groups within institutions enjoy also apply to the institutions at large. Positive learning experiences with these tailored resources contribute to higher retention rates. Joyful teaching experiences reduce faculty burnout. Leadership opportunities for librarians increase their collaboration with faculty and students, cultivating a campus-wide teaching and learning community. The public sphere gains a well-educated workforce who are prepared to take on new challenges of all kinds thanks to the digital competencies and information literacy they gain from learning with OER. Open resources also support lifelong learning, giving the public access to up-to-date, credible information that is essential to upskilling and reskilling. And of course, the wider world benefits from OER, gaining an abundance of quality resources that are ripe for revising and remixing for local contexts, all for no costs. But speaking of no costs, if we eliminate the cost of textbooks, is the work of open education done? I'll pass it off to Amber to explore this question.
Thanks, Spencer. So affordability is an exciting and important advantage of our work, but it's just one of the areas where open education can align with strategic planning in higher education. Perhaps focusing on affordability is the easiest to argue. Who doesn't want to lower textbook costs? And even with the advent of digital publishing, textbook costs remain high. In 2024, according to the Education Data Initiative, the average cost of a textbook for students for each year was $174. And between 1977 and 2015, the cost of textbooks increased over 1,000%. So open education helps us to lower these costs, but publishers are also responding to our work by offering things like inclusive and equitable access. So when we limit ourselves to focusing only on the cost savings, I find that we're selling open education short, and there's more that we can do to make the case for our work. I would argue that OER and open educational practices are capable of affecting most, if not all, strategic priorities in higher education. So on the screen, you'll see a bunch of different thematic priorities that have popped up in strategic plans for higher education in the past few years. Things like college affordability, which obviously addresses the cost savings argument, micro-credentials, student success and belonging, meeting accessibility standards, digital transformation, and innovation. If you'd like, I'd invite you to pick one of these and share how OER or open educational practices might align and respond to these priorities, and share them with us in chat. In the next few slides, we'll take some time to reflect on how we can make the case for everyone, whether that be other faculty, staff, our students, administrators, and members of the community to engage in open educational practices together. Together, let's reflect on how everyone can benefit from this work. So on the screen, you'll see several headlines that are related to both student and faculty burnout, as well as mental health. In the United States, 3/4 of teachers, about 73%, report frequent job stress, feeling burnt out, and symptoms of depression. In Canada, 47% of teachers report experiencing fatigue as a result of their work. And in 2014, an average of 30% of new teachers left the profession within 5 years. The reality is that we as educators and our students are feeling tired, frustrated, burned out. And this really creates a challenging environment for meaningful learning. Open educational practices can bring back joy to our classrooms by sparking student and faculty motivation as we engage in creative, collaborative, and experiential learning. Rather than shouldering the burden of finding or creating all of a course's curriculum alone, faculty can invite students into that journey. This shift not only enhances instructor well-being, but also improves the authentic relationships teachers forge with their students. When educators embrace and create renewable activities or assignments that live beyond the walls of their classroom, they can really create meaningful work that benefits learners now and in the future, not to mention making grading a lot more enjoyable and a rewarding experience. When we encourage students to show up as their authentic selves and help them find connections in both the text and visuals of the course content, deeper learning happens, increasing student success and belonging. Students are more engaged, they're more interested, and they learn more thoroughly when academic content connects to their unique personal and cultural experiences. One way of achieving this is through culturally responsive teaching, which Geneva Gay, who originally coined the term, describes the term as a pedagogical approach that recognizes that our students come to the classroom with rich cultural backgrounds, life experiences, and ways of understanding the world. And this also aligns with university priorities for global engagement and internationalization priorities, as well as community engagement and partnerships. As instructors and their students co-authoring OER can enrich this work by bringing in voices from people from both local and global communities. And one of the best things about open resources is they are not static like normal textbooks. With open licensing, we are all empowered to keep OER relevant and up to date. Gone are the days of waiting for publishers to add new content or hoping that our students show up with the correct edition in class. Instead, the responsibility lies with the educational community and provides a ripe opportunity to incorporate students. With an open license, you're free to do things like bringing in current events, social media trends, opinion polls. You're able to bring in interactive content too to bring the content to life by using tools like H5P or Henley, or maybe even having in-text discussion with hypothesis. And you can bring in a variety of multimedia like videos, podcasts, infographics, and even interactive simulations. And this work aligns with many of the university's strategic priorities that we saw on that first slide, including student success and digital transformation and innovation. Accessibility is what happens when we design and create resources, experiences, tools, and spaces that make space for and support the diversity of our bodies and minds and centers the needs of people with disabilities to ensure that they can engage in the ways that work best for them. I love this definition because I think it really shifts our thinking from how do we make this accessible to how do we design this to work for everyone from the start. And that's exactly what happens when we create OER. Whether we are creating on our own or with students, we can prioritize embedding accessibility features from the very beginning of our projects instead of trying to have to retrofit them like we often have to do with publisher content later on. This work benefits everyone, which is a core principle, of universal design. For example, adding subtitles to a video, yeah, it definitely helps students who are deaf or hard of hearing, but it also helps students who are studying in noisy environments or maybe a parent who's watching a clip with a sleeping child nearby. Universal design directly contributes to student success and belonging. Moreover, while faculty, staff, and student might initially learn these principles of inclusive design in their open education work, I really feel like they end up showing up in places beyond the OER in our classrooms, including other courses, in the work students author, or maybe the work that they're doing at their workplaces, and even when they volunteer. This is a wonderful ripple effect that creates a better world for us all. Since 2006, the American Association of Colleges and Universities, or AAC&U, has conducted an annual survey with over 1,000 executives and hiring managers to learn more about how college is or isn't preparing our students to enter the workplace. So if you take a look at the chart on this slide, you'll see that there's a bunch of different topics from hands-on application of ideas to skill development, independent inquiry, community-based experiences, and exposure to a wide variety of academic topics and disciplines. We engage in all of these when we participate in open educational practices. We're doing all these things with our students, and we're also meeting institutional priorities. They're developing their ideas in a hands-on manner, they're being encouraged to think for themselves and to develop skills. This isn't just good pedagogy, it's workforce preparation in line with the skills that our employers are actively seeking. Furthermore, when students and faculty are happier and less stressed, retention and student success improve. The research shows that when students are hopeful about their future, motivated about the work that they are doing, and have good instructor experiences, they are more likely to be happier and continue in their studies. So when we engage in building open educational resources or participating in open educational practices, we also build essential digital competence skills that benefit everyone. Students and faculty both develop their skills through the hands-on creation of openly licensed materials. In addition to the technical skills, they also work on digital citizenship skills, like finding credible resources online, learning how to attribute something with a Creative Commons license, or maybe how to best present content in a digital environment. They also get to focus in on topics that are related to things like digital equity, like will this resource work offline? Or how do we make this usable across different devices? Faculty might even consider experimenting and reflecting on AI use with their students. As they co-create materials, they'll answer questions like, when is it appropriate to use AI tools in our work? Does this align with our values? How should we provide an attribution for AI use? And what are some of the ethical implications of AI-generated content? And they can answer these questions together. By fostering these digital skills, institutions also addressed strategic priorities, including student success, career readiness, digital transformation and innovation, and others. So, open educational practices invite everyone to be an author and share their voice, perspective, and research. For faculty, there's no need to wait for academic publishers to create a textbook or author a journal article, and they can still follow the same rigorous practices like peer reviewing and copy editing. For students, openly licensing their work means they can share their work with a global audience and add purpose and motivation to their work, build confidence in their skills, and make an impact all before they graduate. Furthermore, because the work is openly licensed, students, educators, and communities can also contribute and tailor these materials for their own unique local contexts, which aligns with strategic priorities around student success and internationalization. And rather than simply asking individuals to read or view our work, open educational practices invite people in. When we openly license our work, we're inviting learners, educators, and members of our community to step inside our work to create and nurture knowledge together. This invitation fosters relationships across roles, across classrooms, and even across institutions. Further, when we engage with local communities to share their voices, case studies, and ideas, we create something that everyone benefits from together. To speak more on what's involved with nurturing OER, I'm going to hand it over to Spencer, who's going to help us focus on some of the items we need to help everyone get involved in OER and to understand, especially administrators at our institutions.
Thanks, Amber. The seeds from which great OER spring are seeds you have in hand already. By showing up to this webinar and showing your interest in open education, it's clear you have the curiosity to ask the questions that will identify challenges in teaching and learning that openly licensed materials can address. You may also have lesson plans, assignments, syllabi, slide decks, and more that are ready to share via open licensing and just waiting for you to publish. The soil for OER provides a nutrient-rich environment where great teaching materials can grow. This entails an all-encompassing culture of curiosity and collaboration that permeates all roles and all projects, so that openness is at the heart of every action. Institutional support to steward this culture can include recognizing open publishing and tenure and promotion, and carving out time for educators to work on OER projects. Training and licensing, content creation, open pedagogy, and more root OER in best practices for teaching and learning, lending stability to resources in case they encounter any strong winds trying to blow them down. such as erroneous copyright claims that challenge fair use. Networks that offer peer support and mentorship help the OER community stay strong, grounded, and resilient. The life-sustaining water for OER comes in the form of time and attention resources are afforded in the long term to keep them up to date and relevant. Watering your OER might include checking broken links, updating examples with current data, and integrating new accessibility guidelines. This requires commitment from institutions to keep nurturing their OER, as well as some foresight from OER creators to identify what ongoing upkeep the OER will require when applying for funding. Tangible learning outcomes that can be harvested for use real world use, spring from the seeds you plant, nourishing large communities with the fruits of your labor, infused with values like inclusion, universal design for learning. Remember also that what grows from OER can be replanted. In fresh soil, the seeds of inspiration you share with the world can grow into even more resources via revising and remixing. Open education is a community garden. It cannot be cultivated in isolation. Everyone can play a role in tending their patch of soil, or even just one plant, depending on their capacity. Educators write, adapt, remix open materials. Librarians support the discovery of OER and advise creators and adapters with their licensing expertise. Instructional designers align open resources with curricula and their learning goals. Administrators prioritize OER initiatives in their strategic plans and allocate funding for these initiatives at all levels of government. And all levels of government enact policies that support open access, such as mandates for publicly funded educational materials to be openly licensed. Just as in a community garden, the goal of open education isn't to profit individually, but to nourish a broader community. Therefore, anyone can harvest the fruits of open education, and everyone stands to benefit from an open ecosystem, including and beyond the audiences we've identified throughout this presentation. So, is making every resource free of cost for students the only end goal for open education? We hope that the benefits beyond student savings, such as creating tailored resources, increasing the visibility of your work, bringing joy back to teaching, and enjoying additional freedom not afforded by traditional publishing, have resonated with you. And we'd like to continue this conversation with our facilitator, Bryan McGeary. Welcome, Bryan. Thank you for joining us today. As we chat with Bryan, we encourage you to share your thoughts and ideas in the chat, and we'll all brainstorm together collectively. So Bryan, what examples of instructors using OER to tailor learning resources to their instruction have particularly resonated with you?
So there's one example that I guess maybe because it's something that I'm currently involved with that really springs to mind. But we have some faculty at Penn State right now that are working on adapting an existing OER that is focused on public speaking. And this textbook, they're adapting it to have more of a focus on AI literacy, because they're finding that their students really need some more instruction around that. And of course, it's such a hot topic that comes up pretty much everywhere. It's coming up a lot in OER these days. And so they've got like a whole team of faculty who are working on different chapters for this, and revising and adapting, I guess, this existing textbook to have that kind of AI literacy focus to it. And, like I said, adapting it to the needs of the students, adapting it because they want to have this particular focus for their teaching. And it's a course that's taught all over Penn State. I think pretty much every student has to take it at some point. And I would imagine that's probably a similar sort of thing at other institutions. Everybody kind of ends up having to take this kind of baseline communication course.
That's so fascinating. The intersection of public speaking and AI literacy, to me, that doesn't like immediately spring to mind, but I'm so heartened by the way that humanities educators have um, embraced the new challenge of teaching AI literacy. Because in my opinion, anyway, students are probably going to be using AI on their assignments regardless. So we might as well arm them with the tools to use it effectively.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah, and I think that's really interesting too, that it's a course that all students will probably encounter in their time at university. I think that's something that we often hope that like they'll get in their upper division courses, and it's so lovely just to see that some of those skills being prioritized early on, because then again, it'll have an effect on all the courses they take after that.
Yeah, it kind of makes me think of like encountering students who are like in their final year and they're like going to the library for the first time.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I wish I could have like caught you earlier on, you know. And so that's, yeah, I think that's kind of what this is working toward, except with AI as opposed to, you know, something else.
Or like maybe you were going to the library, but you didn't even know that there was this whole room full of incredible things that could have benefited you, or that kind of
Right.
stuff too.
Right.
That's
Yeah. They just go
exciting.
there to like use the space to like do homework or meet their students or something. Yeah.
Yeah. So one question I have for you, Bryan, is when thinking about OER and assessment specifically, what are some possibilities you see in preparing students for the workforce with open pedagogy? And I think that there's a great connection to that with AI, right? For example, we might put some skill building in there, but are there other things that you can think of?
Well, I guess first of all, just in general, I would say that I think open pedagogy really provides this great opportunity to foster like a lot of discipline agnostic kinds of skills. So things like research skills, information literacy skills, writing skills, all those sorts of things that they can apply in any context, regardless of which, you know, career you end up going into, and just as being like good citizens, good human beings, that sort of thing. And uh, I think the other important thing here too is that like this is an opportunity for authentic learning and applied learning in like real world context. So like an example that comes to my mind at Penn State, we have this program called Classroom to Community. And basically it's centered around increasing community engagement. So having students kind of doing things that are sort of out there in the community. And I'm reminded of there was one course that participated in this. It was a public relations methods course where students were actually working with a local nonprofit to create like a full-fledged marketing campaign for them. And and they were creating like media and digital components. So they were creating all these kinds of different sort of artifacts or objects or whatever you want to call it that weren't just like a disposable assignment that like you hand it in and nobody ever looks at it again. These are things that are actually getting like reused out there in the world and getting used for like an actual real world kind of purpose. And so the students got, you know, experience doing things that they might do if they were working at an actual public relations agency. And they, you know, were producing things that had audiences beyond just the classroom. So there's an opportunity to kind of uh, assess learning there that goes beyond just like, you know, did they write a nice paper or something like that? Like you can actually see kind of the the fruits of the work in terms of like the impact that it's having out there in the community. So I thought that that was pretty cool.
Yeah, and something I think too that's really rewarding from an instructional or from the perspective of an instructor is that when students know that their work is going to be used beyond the scope of the classroom, I think that it adds a little bit of like healthy pressure to
Yeah.
really make the material high quality, and but also like feel rewarded in knowing that the work that they're doing has meaning and purpose, and that even where they're at in their learning journey, they can really make a difference, and they can contribute to everyone's knowledge and to the academy, so to speak. I think that that's such a confidence builder. I often, when I was a student, I often felt like had to wait until the very end until I got my degree in order to make a difference, right? Like I have to pass all these hoops and tests first, but I think that really empowering students to know that they can start sharing as they're learning, just as like we do as educators, right? And make a difference.
Yeah, and that's one thing that like with projects that we've done that are open pedagogy projects that you see come up time and time again with students, like even if they do experience a little bit of discomfort or apprehension at the offset because it's kind of different than what they might be used to, they get really excited about the fact that like, oh, this is going to have some kind of like uh, purpose beyond just getting a grade, or this is something that is going to benefit students down the line, like students that they may themselves never actually meet, and they get really excited about that, or that they're creating something that maybe can actually go on their resume or CV or whatever the case may be.
You also touched on something, Brian, that I think is kind of um, an underrated benefit of open pedagogy, which is students not only get to add these projects to their portfolio, but by working with community partners, they're expanding their networks. And there's an opportunity there that when they graduate, that might translate into more job opportunities, which is a huge benefit for students.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I hadn't thought about that. That's a great connection. Excellent. Yeah.
How has working with OER benefited you in your career, speaking of careers? Have there been skills you've developed and opportunities you've been afforded by engaging with the OER community?
Yes, so many things. So I guess just on a sort of baseline level, like I would say that it's disrupted my thinking in like a good way, because it's gotten me to think outside of the typical sort of paradigm of like commercial textbooks, library resources. It's like these are your options for teaching. I mean, I was an undergraduate in the early 2000s, and we didn't have, the things that we have now in terms of open education and the technology and tools that go along with that. So I kind of wonder like how might my experience at the time might have been different had all of this existed at that point in time. And so it's gotten me thinking, I guess in the sense that how I look at higher education and what's possible, I look at it in a slightly different way than I used to before uh, learning about open education. As far as like my career specifically, I mean, my career as it currently exists wouldn't exist without open education. My job at Penn State is focused almost exclusively on open education, but even before that, the institutions that I worked at previously as like a subject specialist librarian, I learned about open education and started to become involved in open education. And so the experiences I had with that, like assisting with an open pedagogy project and getting a grant to support open pedagogy projects, I saw, I think, in the attendees here, Chris Guter from Ohio University. We worked on that together. So shout out to Chris. But these are things that were these experiences were impactful and interesting, and they kind of expanded my realm of experience in terms of what I did in my job in ways that I wouldn't have had otherwise, and that as I was going to get other jobs that I could point to, and the things that I do in my current job have continued to like build up skills. So like grant writing skills, instruction and facilitation skills, and project management skills, and leading teams, all those kinds of skills. And I've had the opportunity to work with so many groups of people that I wouldn't have had the opportunity to work with otherwise. So like I get to do things working with our donors that we have at Penn State, or the work that I've done with Rebus, facilitating cohorts of people all over the country, and with the work that I do as an instructor for the Open Education Network certificate program, working with librarians all over the country, working with folks at institutions all over the state of Pennsylvania through our statewide OER organization. So like none of that kind of stuff would have happened for me had it not been for getting involved in open education. And I just recently received early promotion and tenure at Penn State, so I think the results kind of speak for themselves. So I really owe it all to open education, and to everybody that I have worked with along the way in open education.
That's great. Congratulations on early promotion and
Oh,
tenure.
thank you. Thanks.
And I'm so happy to hear that to hear you say that your career as it exists now wouldn't be the same without open education. Because I'm hoping that everyone will go back to their institutions now and tell them open education creates jobs. Look at what it can do.
Absolutely. Exactly.
Yeah, Brian, but I'm really grateful for you to sharing, how it's personally benefited you. And I'd be curious, I have kind of a follow-up question to maybe ask you as well. It's an unscripted one. It's not one we shared with you beforehand. But how has some of these benefits, do you think, how have they helped you to make the case for open at your institution or when working with faculty? I have some ideas, but I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Well, I mean, I think a lot of those things that I mentioned, like, those aren't unique to me. Like, those benefits can happen for anybody. And so anybody else who is working in academia, if you have, career goals to move forward, move up, however you want to define success, developing the kinds of skill sets that I've continued to develop, like I mentioned, like grant writing, for instance. If you're an academic, that's something that's probably going to be useful to you. Or project management skills, or even just like I said, having the opportunity to work with all of these folks that I wouldn't have gotten the opportunity to do so otherwise, really expands like your thinking, and you get exposed to lots of different perspectives. Um, Sometimes I think about like how different my life would be if I worked in a job where you kind of only encounter the people that are like in that physical workspace. And that's not to say that that's a bad thing or whatever, but just that I really like the way that my work is in terms of being able to engage with all these different folks. And so, I mean, other folks who want to get involved in open education, that's a great benefit that you can very easily attain just by coming to webinars like this, for instance. There are so many opportunities for this kind of stuff, and yeah, you just have to kind of avail yourself of those things.
Yeah, and Brian, I'm really connecting what you're saying with one of the data points we shared earlier on, which is when instructors have good professional development, students have better experiences, right? Like I just imagine everything that you're doing is having a ripple effect on all the faculty and the students that you work with. And like when we as faculty are empowered with these skills, we're able to teach them to our students and foster those skills in our students too. So I think that that's a really cool effect. And hopefully you're happier in your work and that makes our
Yeah,
like our students can tell when instructors are passionate and happy and joyful in the classroom too.
absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, I think your experience also speak to sort of the lifelong learning spirit of open education. And I think getting involved in open education really exposes folks to professional development they may have never thought of. And I think that's what's so exciting about this little niche we have.
Absolutely.
Is there a benefit to OER you didn't see us highlight today that you'd like to add, or maybe one you'd like to underscore with a real world example?
Yeah, actually, I think I could probably do both of those things. So, I mean, the thing that really resonates with me is that not to say that any one of those benefits is like more important or better than the others, but the aspect about open pedagogy and workforce preparation really resonates with me. I already mentioned that like classroom to community program, and we've had examples of students contributing to like the creation of textbooks as well. So for instance, we had at Penn State, this was kind of like during the height of the pandemic, we had students in a graduate level course in the College of Agricultural Sciences who helped create a textbook for an undergraduate course in global agriculture and food security. And so those graduate students, they were getting experience with kind of academic publishing and research. And it also provided them with an opportunity to have a research experience at a time when, so the students in this course, they would typically do some sort of study abroad kind of thing where they would learn about global agriculture. But since they couldn't do that because you couldn't travel, pandemic, that whole thing, this was kind of sort of a way of giving them a research experience that was still interesting, engaging, without having that ability to travel. And actually, I've got a link to like a story about that if folks are interested in learning more about that project. But so I think that kind of thing is really cool. And but if there was an additional benefit that I could think of, perhaps it would be that open education can contribute to like a more humane model of academic publishing. I recall years ago seeing Dave Ernst from the Open Education Network giving a presentation where he had the slide that had like a visual representation of how the funding model for OER publishing differs from the funding model for commercial textbook publishing. And that really stuck with me. I mean, the fact that I'm talking about it, probably like 8 years after the fact, it really stuck with me. And because it makes it like transparent that OER aren't like free in the sense that there are real costs that go into producing these things. But yet there is a model for doing this that removes that like profit motive and treats education as more of a public good, which I guess is just more in line with my own personal values. So I think that's an important benefit of open education.
I would hope everyone would share your personal values. I can't see anyone critical of a public good and a movement that seeks to educate people, increase information, increase sharing, transparency, reciprocity. Um, Personally, I see no downsides to OER, but I may be biased.
Likewise.
Awesome. And I think rather than asking this question, I think it's actually a great opportunity for us right now, Spencer, to open it up for Q&A for the audience. We want to give everyone plenty of time. We'd invite you to either put your question in chat or to raise your hand. And you can ask a question to just Bryan specifically or to us as a group, and we'll do our best to answer your question. Manisha, would you like to unmute to ask your question?
Yes, definitely. So, how is time made and supports given to sessional instructors or partial load instructors or contract staff to really passionately use open education, just like Bryan was using it and still using it? How is professional learning, professional development for sessional instructors for open education meaningfully, respectfully happening in the business of education?
Want me to start off with
Yeah,
that?
sure. Go ahead, Bryan.
That's a really good question, and a very timely one, because we see so much of higher education moving more toward moving away from tenure line positions to these kinds of more precarious, shall we say, positions. And I wouldn't say that I have like the perfect solution to that, but I think one simple thing is, first of all, just making these opportunities available to those folks. So like, for instance, when we have OER grant programs where, you're giving folks financial incentives to switch over to OER, like instead of making it such that, you know, only full-time faculty are eligible, like make it open to everybody. The other thing too is that I guess one of the things is that you can like leverage OER in a way that's going to help folks that are in those kinds of positions, because I would imagine, at least in some contexts, folks that are teaching on those kinds of contracts, they might be getting thrown into something at kind of the last minute. And you kind of have to get up to speed on it, and maybe you don't even get to choose the textbook. So if programs kind of think ahead about that and really design the course materials themselves, like, you know, through using OER, you can set those people up for success. So like, for instance, with that AI literacy book that I was talking about, because this is a course that's taught, you know, tons of sections across the university, there are folks teaching some of those sections who aren't necessarily like full-time faculty. And so part of their goal there is like, okay, we create this textbook, we create the kinds of instructor resources and things like that to benefit those folks, so that when they come in, they can, you know, be up and running. And actually, some of the folks who are contributing to the project are folks who are in non full-time positions, and so you know, they're getting financial incentives to participate. Obviously, you know, the amount of labor that folks put into these projects is probably substantially more than anybody's getting paid to do it, but at least folks are getting some sort of compensation for it. I think the other thing is that, like, and this is beyond open education, but just that institutions really need to like start valuing the work that these folks do more, like, you know, kind of providing recognition. And I think this goes even to like folks who are in tenure line positions. Like sometimes they don't want to get involved with OER because like the main thing they're evaluated on is their research. And so like there needs to be policy kinds of changes happening at the institutional level or the department level or whatever the case may be, to recognize this work as this is something that's valuable to our educational mission and to the things that we put forward as our institutional values. I'm not sure if that totally answers the question, but maybe that's at least a starting point.
Those are excellent suggestions, Brian, and I'm going to add a couple of others that are really related to what you shared. I think too, when we think of adjunct faculty, like you said, I think we definitely need to invite them and be inclusive, but I think we also need to think a little bit too about, you know, for adjunct faculty, they might be coming to campus 1 day a week, for example, or they might be teaching evening classes. And so often the professional development or the support that we offer is sort of like during the workday and it's in the middle of the day. And maybe that doesn't work for your adjunct instructors, but maybe it's also not working for some of your full-time folks as well. And so think about that and really talk with the people who are interested in attending your professional development. Does it always have to be synchronous? Could it be a hybrid or an asynchronous, or could you have multiple groups, like where maybe you have the content asynchronously, but then you have different discussion groups, and maybe there's an evening option and a morning option or a weekend option for folks who like that. But I think that's an important part of professional development. It is really meeting people where they are and where they're able to attend. And absolutely, as you said, Brian, really recognizing their work through compensation for attending, not just for like creating materials, but also for attending professional development. Because I think so often for full-time instructors or even for professional staff, like that professional development is a piece of their workload, but that is not really included in the workload for an adjunct instructor. So we really should be compensating them for that. And then finding ways to recognize their work. You know, again, compensation is great, but also making sure that like when we do campus highlights or departmental highlights, that we're showing that work. We're really lifting these folks up and sharing the amazing work that they're doing. And also use that when you know, whether there's different like tiers of adjunct pay or things like that, like all those things should count and really should be like going into the file for that person to hopefully help them move up or gain more security at the university.
Thank you. I really appreciate all the points which you've added. Just one question, if I may ask, please. Is it okay?
Manisha, I do think we do have one more question from
Okay.
Cheryl. Do you mind if we ask Cheryl's question, then we can always circle back?
Yes, definitely, please.
Awesome.
That's why I was asking, please go
Thank you so
ahead.
much. Okay, Cheryl has a question for Bryan. Cheryl says, what resources do you find most useful in your OER and open pedagogy work?
Yeah, so I was queuing up a few links here to drop into the chat. So let me put those there, and then I can just say a couple words. So first one, and I swear this isn't like me sort of shilling for Rebus or anything, but the Rebus guide to making open textbooks with students, I think is awesome. And I think it's probably one of the first things that I looked at whenever I started to get involved with open pedagogy. Also, the Open Education Network's Open Pedagogy Portal, which is a newer thing that's like pulling together lots of different resources. So that's a really great place to go to. And then I guess the last one is maybe a little bit of like shilling for myself, but it's the Open Pedagogy Project Roadmap that I helped create with my colleague Christina Reedman Murphy. So I think all of those are excellent places if you're kind of in the planning stages of like figuring out, how do I want to go about doing this? Kind of what is the scope of the work going to be? What are some considerations and things that I need to plan for and all of that to make sure that this is successful.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Bryan. Okay, looks like we have Matt, and then we'll circle back to you, Manisha.
Hi, everyone. Manisha can go first. That's totally fine. That's no problem at all.
Okay. Okay, Manisha, go ahead and jump in. Thanks, Matt.
Matt, you can go ahead first. I'm from India, First, we always give opportunity to other people. Go ahead, Matt. I already had my chance.
That-
After you, I will
That's so
say my question.
that's so kind of you. Thank you so much. I just had a question for Dr. McGeary here. So I'm a high school teacher, and years ago our department tried to write our own textbook. One, to save money, and two, because we thought we could do a good job with it. But we ran into all sorts of roadblocks with that. And so I was just saying, to restart that, I have to kind of overcome that inertia with my colleagues who like had that experience. What would be, and the resources you already included, I'll go to first, but what would be your advice for like a classroom teacher or someone who was trying to kind of to build a small win? Could you walk us through maybe some advice you'd give for some first steps for a classroom teacher to get started with OER?
Yeah, could you say a little bit more about sort of what were some of the bad
Roadblocks?
things that happened that like left a bad taste in people's mouths about this? Yeah.
Yeah. So
If you feel, I don't know if it's like how sort of personal any of that stuff is, but yeah.
Yeah, so what I can share, the big things were obviously there's a ton of work in developing the resources yourselves, and we have less time each and every year. So that would be one thing. So the difficulty there. Two would be we ran into a lot of fear from the district about copyright issues. So that was everything we were trying to do. Just having an easy way to be like, is this, Creative Commons, or what is the licensing? And we would have this great resource and we couldn't figure out easily if we could use it or we couldn't. And then the other thing would just be, I think there were just concerns of, do we have to get all this stuff board approved? So some of that stuff is like in the weeds school district stuff that, I wouldn't even expect anyone to be able to get there quickly. But if there's a way to just say, here's a great win, hey, this is going to save you money and it's great for the kids because they're going to enjoy it better. Just any advice or thoughts you might have.
Yeah, sure. Well, I guess a couple of things. I mean, one, maybe because you're talking about, getting some small wins, maybe it's not a matter of like, okay, we've got a create a whole new textbook or something like that. Maybe it's like a few smaller things that that you can try out, see how it works. It maybe doesn't require as much of an investment of time or resources or what have you. And you know, if that goes well, then maybe people will feel a bit differently about it going forward. The other thing too is, you know, there's a lot of OER out there, even, you know, for K through 12. And so maybe you don't have to like create something from scratch. Maybe there's something that you can start with that already is out there, and bring your own expertise to it, you know, like reshape it to fit your specific context. But that would kind of at least diminish some of the like labor burden that would go into it that might turn people off to it. I mean, as far as the school district stuff, that is maybe a little bit beyond my knowledge as far as like what their sort of review processes are. But I mean, because something is OER doesn't mean that it's like not of the quality that the commercial textbook would be. So I mean, presumably they review those books beforehand or not, I don't know. And they would have to do the same sort of thing with the OER books. And then I do feel for you with the like concerns around copyright and all of that, because people get really kind of scared about all of that. I mean, the good thing about with OER is like the licenses tell you up front, you know, you can do these things, you can't do these other things. So it really, I would think, would take out some of the fear, because like it's very explicit about what you can do with it. And I don't know like what kinds of individuals or resources are available to you in the K through 12 space as far as like reaching out to somebody for copyright expertise, but
I really appreciate your idea to start with small wins, because I think that that'll help a lot. And if there's something as with K to 12, or I think that was the other thing when we went, I mean, this was a while ago too. So when we went to look for things, it was very overwhelming. So it's one of those things of like, if there's like a gold standard, you know, social studies resource or something like that, and you could point us in that direction, that would be great. But I love the small wins idea, and the idea of like taking it, we're not designing it ourselves, we're putting our spin on it instead of that's super helpful. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Awesome. I think, Manisha, if we have time for one more question, and then
Sure.
we'll close.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, my question is in the same line as the discussion we were just now having. But the context is colleges and universities, not K-12 sector at all. What do you think is the fastest way to get into OER, like sustainable OER? You know, sometimes it's okay to go slow, but you know, sustainability is so critical once a content is created, like maintaining it. You know, these three, 10 years ago, I heard, you know, a lot adopt, adapt, create, you know, adopt in my create work, adopt always does not work. It always sounds easy. But, you know, second, it's not like multiple choice, but I'm just writing some which I'm aware of, but I'm sure you have lots to add. OER-enabled pedagogy, like reusable assignments in your class, but it takes time to educate or get buy-in from your students, because if you're using it for the first time, it's not just using the technology, it's this full open fluency, creative common licensing, so which takes time if you content. Number third is, you know, converting. I've heard many times, like if you have a Moodle course converted into an OER, like it's so good to note that for OER, you can begin anywhere, like front end, back end, middle. It's, you know, curating your content together. But I want to ask from your experience, what's the fastest sustainable as well as sustainable way? Quality matters, you know, to create OERs for colleges and universities.
And Manisha,
Yeah.
you have so many great questions that I might pause us there. And why don't we, Spencer, why don't we go ahead and go to the next slide? And we just want to share with you before everyone leaves, a little bit about some upcoming webinars and programs, and then let's circle back and continue our conversation, Manisha, if that sounds good. So we have, Spencer, I don't know, if you want to jump in and share some of the upcoming materials that we have? Or I'd be happy to jump in, whichever.
I'd be happy to. Sorry, it
Yeah.
just took me a
Awesome. No, that's
second to
okay.
unmute. So we have some upcoming programs and webinars. We offer a wide range of professional development opportunities, and there are great options to continue your learning journey and connect with other educators who are passionate about open education. So we have a new cohort of our supplemental development material certificate that is launching in October this year. We also have ongoing cohorts of our open publishing project certificate, which is a year-long program of professional development for creating great open educational resources as part of a team. And we also have another upcoming free webinar. Next month, we have a webinar on open pedagogy basics, hosted by Mary Isbell. Amber, do you remember the date on that one?
Oh, that's a good question. We can pull it up. But yeah, thank you so much for mentioning Mary's webinar, because I think that'll be a great opportunity if you're interested in some of the ideas of open educational practices and renewable assignments. July 16th, this one will be a great one for you to check out, because we'll dive more deeper into some of those concepts. Oh, Spencer, go ahead.
So you can visit our website at Rebus Community to learn more. We also have a newsletter you can subscribe to. We have a YouTube channel where the recording of this webinar will be available, and we'll be sharing the slides for this webinar as well. So thank you all for joining us. It's been a pleasure to have you all. And we love anyone who has remaining questions to stay on the call, and we can continue the conversation.
Thank you so much. And we invite everyone to visit our website, which will pop in chat here, rebus.community, to learn more about the services and programs that Spencer shared.